We knew at the time somebody was a suspect because they locked us down.
Yeah.
We were shut down. But from that shop, I mean, I wish I had a map to describe it to you. We weren't but a couple miles away from that rental.
Welcome to the Echo Oscar Delta podcast, where we talk to Navy EOD techs and hear the stories that they want to share. All ideas, thoughts, and statements are those of the guest and the host of Echo Oscar Delta, and not of Navy EOD or Navy as a whole. Well, Randy, I appreciate you coming on. I've had several people request you coming on.
Really?
And it wasn't just me multiple times emailing myself. But so today we got Randy Oakley. He is actually the first non-Navy EOD tech, even though we basically adopted him. And I wasn't there at the beginning, but I've heard that people broke you down until you became like real Navy.
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
But as far as Army time, you did 20 years active duty, 23 years total to include some reserve time. And we're an Army EOD tech. And retired as a sergeant first class, which for everyone, to include myself till about 10 minutes ago, that's an E7 in the Army.
Right.
Appreciate you coming and sitting down.
Yeah, thanks for having me. A little intimidating. I've seen some of the people you've spoken to already, and I'm like, I just don't know what I'm going to talk about, you know?
Yeah, it is weird. It is weird sitting down with a microphone in front of your face and, earphones on and whatnot, and then knowing that you're going to be talking about yourself.
Right.
But that's probably the least weird thing I've seen you do. So
Yeah.
I think it'll be all right.
I don't think I talk about myself ever, though. It'll be strange.
Right. Well, to change that, what was your process coming in to the military, and then how'd you come into EOD?
So, yeah, I started military. I started with the Montana Army National Guard. I was, high school student in Fairfield, Montana, grown up, and, recruiter came in, and Buddy and I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. So I became an armor crewman in the Montana Army National Guard. And did that for almost 4 years, and decided I wanted to go active duty about 4 years later, and I did. And so I found myself in tanks at Fort Carson, Colorado.
Nice.
And it was, I guess, fun for a young kid for a while.
Yeah.
But how did I find EOD? In a tank. We were out doing some tank table range. I don't remember exactly what we were doing out there, but you'd go out and you fire the different weapon systems in the tanks. And we're all sitting on top of one of the tanks one day, and U.S. Army bomb disposal truck went by with a bunch of police, and I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. And, we kind of inspired a conversation. A lot of guys were talking about it. We went to, everybody stands in line trying to get your chow at night. We had to do the Army. Everybody stands 5 meters apart. And, but we're all like talking and, talking about the EOD guys, and everybody's like, yeah, those guys are really cool. They get to wear civilian clothes, blue jeans and stuff, and they hang out with fire departments and stuff. And I was like, wow, I'm going to look into that. And that's where it started for me. So
Nice.
I kind of did the on-the-job training thing with the 94th EOD in Colorado Springs, Colorado, Fort Carson. Did that for 3-4 months, and then I started EOD school January of 1993, and it was a different phases then. So we had the Indian Head. So
Okay. Yeah.
So we started at Eglin, and then went to Indian Head, and then I went back to Redstone Arsenal.
That's right, because y'all do a portion completely separate from, not really completely separate, but there's Army and I think Air Force still does some Redstone Arsenal stuff even to this day.
Yeah, I think where the Navy breaks off and does their Area 8, we go and do our Army thing. Yeah.
That's cool. How was going through back then for you? Was it pretty seamless, or should we move on from that conversation?
No, EOD school was really cool.
Yeah.
It was very hard because, Fort Walton Beach, Florida.
Yeah.
That was, and so our big testing, March, spring break. So we were there for, it was a challenge for a young kid,
Yeah.
But with all the distractions, it was still something you set your head and, you did your homework and you did what you were supposed to do. And so, yeah, it was good.
Nice.
I always kind of joked about it because we had our Air Force, there was an Air Force tech sergeant that was the class leader. We had a bunch of Navy guys. It was a Marine officer, I think, was there. That was like she had the tech sergeant who was the NCO, and then the Marine. I don't know, but all four services were represented. And here I am, a young Army E4 specialist. It was kind of unusual because all four services represented. First time in my life I'd ever been in that environment, which is kind of interesting.
What did you think about the Navy guys back then?
Yeah, so they were pretty cool. I remember, man, I'll tell you what, one of the guys had a birthday, and that was brutal. I'm glad I did not have a birthday that everybody knew about when I was there. Yeah, that was awesome. Terrible. The poor guy. I mean, yeah. When you get a spanking when you're a kid, when he got a spanking. I mean, people were breaking out their belts. I was like, oh, my God, this is terrible. Yeah. I felt bad for him.
Feeling like you joined the right service?
Well, no, I think anybody that would have had a birthday that, anybody publicly knew about might have been. Maybe they were just really good friends. I don't know. But, yeah, wow. But they did. They wore him out. I don't think he was happy afterwards.
Yeah,
it took him a while, yeah.
After you graduated EOD school, where'd you go to? Did you go to like a regular...
Fort Riley, Kansas.
Okay.
Yeah, 74th EOD, Fort Riley, Kansas.
Nice. How was that?
That was interesting. Yeah, it was really good because I was there when the Oklahoma City bombing occurred.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And right off the bat, that truck was rented right outside the back gate of Fort Riley at that little rental, U-Haul rental place or Ryder rental, whatever the hell that truck was.
Yeah.
And we had two individuals within, our company, or detachment that, looked just like the photos, the
really?
Images. Yeah.
That's awkward.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it was, Ryan Field and Jeff, Mike Fleener. Ryan Field and Mike Fleener were their names.
Yeah.
And they looked just like those two. And so immediately, CID and the police came to our command, and everybody got pushed inside. They locked the fence, and none of us were allowed to leave. And then CID and FBI and, there was multiple federal agencies that fell down upon us.
Yeah.
And everybody got interviewed. Everybody separated and interviewed, and they kept us for quite a while. And then after, then we were kind of included in kind of the investigative, and they would, there a lot of doors got kicked in, a lot of pawn shops, military surplus stores, places like that, all in the northern, because the Army, we participated in, whenever a law enforcement need occurred, that you would respond with them.
Okay.
And so, or for them, in whatever it is that, whether they found ordnance or whatever, but
yeah,
we were along for the ride for quite a few of their trips because I think they were expecting, nefarious things.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. So we were part of that. I operated the robot. We opened up Terry Nichols' house in Harrington, Kansas. So I was the guy that put the key in the robot and drove down and put the key in the door, turned the key, opened the door and pushed it open and drove the robot in. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Was that how many times did you practice putting a key in a door before you went and did that?
So we did a lot of robot rodeos. So the at the time it was the Remotech system. I think, later Ron's, whatever.
Okay,
anyway, so that system was pretty new, and everybody was pretty excited, when we got them, because we traded in this old yellow wheelbarrow looking ugly thing. Yeah, it was terrible. And we picked up the Andros, right? The Remotech Andros, I think is what it was referred to as. And so we got those robots, and some of the best EOD techs that the Army at the time that I knew of, that were out there, what we did robot rodeos, and we would pick up eggs, and, we would do things like that. So you had to get pretty good with it. Nice. And so we played with them quite a bit. That was, nothing like the robots we have today, but it was still pretty impressive for us. And so we practiced a lot. That was something that, we didn't just sit around in the shop. You actually,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You use your equipment. And so we did. And so, when it came time to actually use it, it wasn't easy. It was a challenge because, it's very difficult to figure out which way does the door turn, which way does it turn to unlock. Because you stick a key in the door, it doesn't always, I don't know if you've ever picked any locks, but,
officially no.
Yeah, of course not. But you don't, it's a challenge because you just don't know, which way to go. But so we pulled that off, and that was good. But we participated. From that point, we checked all the mail, and, they were worried about everything at that point.
Yeah.
So.
I bet. You got some dudes that did some pretty crazy stuff that really is kind of almost unthinkable to that point, like in America anyways, unthinkable kind of.
That stuff at that time wasn't norm.
Right.
And now I think because we didn't have the social media back then, I think that maybe those little small things were occurring around the country. You always have that one-off, right?
Right, yeah.
That does that dumb thing. But I think we see everything that happens now, because you don't have to be watching local news. Now, everything is local with Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah.
And so.
Something actually interesting. So with the way they made that, homemade bomb basically in that truck, how much exposure up to that point as an EOD tech did you guys have to that method of, making homemade explosives to do something like that?
So at that time, I don't believe that I was still relatively new.
Okay.
Within EOD, because I graduated in August of '93, and I don't remember when that bomb went off, but it probably wasn't much more than a year after that.
Yeah.
And so, we had our every morning you would start the day with, a piece of ordnance or whatever it was that whoever was in charge of training for that day had to pick that training topic. So we may have brushed on something like that occasionally, but no, I did not have a wealth of knowledge because I was a young, new guy.
Yeah.
And so not a lot of experience. And I don't think anybody was probably an HME.
Right.
Acronyms are terrible, homemade explosives. But, that just was not a thing, back then.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what just kind of dawned on me, as the EOD tech now, because of the wars for the last 20 years, almost everybody who's an EOD tech has had some type of schooling in it, or at least been taught a bunch about it, even if they didn't go to school and make it themselves. But just way back then, like you said, without that knowledge being just commonplace, it would make sense to me that unless it happened in your local area, that's kind of a thing that doesn't really happen here. Right. So, until it does.
Right. And that was unusual and interesting that my investigators, when I got put in the room, when our shop got locked down and I was put in the room in front of the CID, and I don't know, it might have been a Secret Service or an FBI. They had whatever agencies were available at the time. I think that's who was there conducting the interviews.
Yeah.
And because I don't remember exactly, but there was multiple federal agents. We had ATF. Everybody was there. And I don't remember who was in the room with me, but my interview, that's what they were asking me, is about, ANFO and what does it take to ignite it? What does it take to cause the detonation or the explosion? Or, in my mind, what they wanted me to kind of go through it with them, describe it. And I was like, wow. And I was a young guy, and I think I did all right. I probably would have passed the test, but,
It's funny. I can imagine myself sitting there and being like, all right, I want to be... I don't want to be looked at as like an idiot EOD tech, but also I don't want to give them too much information because I don't want to be a suspect.
Well, I think we knew at the time somebody was a suspect because they locked us down.
Yeah.
We were shut down. But from that shop, I mean, I wish I had a map to describe it to you. We weren't but a couple miles away from that rental.
Really?
Where that truck was rented, because we were close to the gate.
Yeah.
At Fort Riley, and literally right outside the gate. That's where it was rented. And then we had those two dudes, that looked.
That's so crazy.
I mean, if I had their pictures right now, I would show them to you and say, look, this, but it was interesting.
Yeah. I remember when that went down, because we had his uncle and aunt and uncle that lived out in Oklahoma City, and they were pretty far away, and their windows broke on one side of the house from the explosion.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I went on a VIP, and it was, I don't remember what period. I guess I'd have to go back and look through, but it was like a week and a half, maybe 10 days, maybe 2 weeks later. But I went down on a VIP, and I don't remember who it was. Maybe Al Gore. I don't know if it was POTUS. But anyway, I went down for a VIP, and man, it was amazing because the crater in the ground and all the windows, like some of the windows were boarded up, but some of them were still gone. But you just seen from just being downtown.
Yeah.
Nobody was granted access to that area downtown, and just to be able to go into that area and look around, and oh man, it was just amazing.
It's got to be cool.
Devastating, and by today's standard of what people are creating, that was actually it was a large explosion because there was a lot there, but I think by today's standard, that was rudimentary.
Right. Yeah, I remember studying EOD school, and we'll go into specifics about it, but they talked about that and how much different it could have been had just a few things changed in that.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. Sometimes we get lucky in unlucky situations, I guess you could say.
Right. It was a bad situation, but fortunate.
Yeah.
That it wasn't worse.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, something that occurred to me is I know a lot about how Navy EOD teams are structured, but I really don't know very much about how Army EOD teams were structured, or what do you call them? Do you call them teams, or do you call them like?
Yeah, okay. we had EOD teams, but I think they're much different. Much different.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know today's standard. I'm way out of touch with what's going on right now. So we became companies. For a while they were detachments, but then they became companies. So within a company, there were, I don't remember how many of us there were, but there wasn't a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe, trying to count all the dudes in my head, but maybe 12 people in a company. So you have the commander, the first sergeant, ops NCO, and then maybe a lieutenant back in the back, for like a OIC in the back. But then you have your there might be 3 6s and a couple of 5s, 3 5s. So, Wow, it's been a long time since I look back at that.
Oh, that's interesting.
But yeah, but teams were just like when we went out and responded to things, you'd respond as a 2-man team.
Okay.
So it was much different. But you had the company element, and then broke into teams from there.
Yeah. He talked about starting your day off with like a training, whether it's a piece of ordnance or whatever. What was your? You said 74th.
That's where I started.
Okay.
Yeah.
74th. What was your like normal mission? Did you do like base and local response, or like how was that set up? Or did you train to then do a deployment, or?
Sure. So every company or detachment, I think when I first showed up, it was detachment for a very short period of time, and then they realigned
Okay.
Under the 52nd Ordnance Group, and became then they had the ordnance battalions and then companies, so it became a company. But every battalion supports a particular brigade. Brigades support the divisions, right? So our group was basically, brigade level.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Colonel. And then your battalions were like your probably like a mobile unit.
Yeah.
So like your group, and then your mobile units, and then teams. But our companies, I don't know that it would be the same. But the companies were just assembled to do exactly that. We were sporadically, at the time I was in, around the United States. They had teams and detachments blotched across the country.
Yeah.
In locations where we could very easily support local authorities because Vietnam veterans had brought things home that they weren't aware were dangerous, and somebody would pass, and the spouse, the widow, would notify authorities when they're going through attics and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, I found this thing, and it looks like a bomb," and we'd show up and it was a grenade, but they're real. They were live ordnance, and so wow, had a kid gone through it and pulled a pin or something. I mean, and I think things like that have happened. But so we would support at the time I wasn't supporting any war efforts, so we just trained to support, the whether you were attached to an infantry division or an armor division, but you were there to support that division should they mobilize and move, right?
Yeah.
So they would take their EOD assets with them.
That makes sense. It's funny because I don't think about it in that terms, because the Navy, we're so differently structured, and we set up a team to maybe go support a carrier strike group or something, and then the rest of us go sit on an island somewhere. But it's interesting. Like I forget when I think about it until you start talking about it, how the way the Army is structured in general is different than the way the Navy is kind of set up. But that's pretty cool. So let's see. Did that? How was it back then when you were in as a new guy? One of the things I ask a lot of the Navy guys, you get to your mobile unit for the Navy, you get to your company or division for you, and as you go through, and you're there for a year or so, how did you feel after about a year, maybe 2 years? Do you feel like the training prepared you for the stuff you started to encounter, or do you feel like it should have been more, or you were, well and above trained?
I had good leadership.
Yeah.
So I think training, because, at the time we were training for like, it wasn't an IED,
Right.
although you kind of tried to prepare for the stuff like that, the unknown. But the rules were different. We were not educated the way people are educated today.
Yeah.
With IEDs, because it was a much different, the mentality was different.
Yeah.
You get an X-ray of something and then close to without touching. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
And so, those were the rules, and it was much different. And so now it's much more precise, and people, technology has advanced so far from where we were. But training was, I think, rested on the quality of your leadership. And I had good guys, I can, Brad Simmons, Tony Campbell, people like that I started off with when I showed up at the command. Phenomenal, knowledgeable, willing to teach, learn a lot from them. Good guys. But the Army was also flawed in the way we did business because, everything was very subjective. So you had some people that were very, very knowledgeable, and then you had some people that had a lot of conventional wisdom that in their mind they were very knowledgeable.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but certainly not the case with Tony Campbell or Brad Simmons. They were sharp. Mark Fucci, people like that. They were spot on, sharp. Knew a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know where to go on from there.
No, that makes sense. I think that's, your organizations have their structured training, but inside of that, when you have your smaller units, you have, I think it is, even within structured training, your leadership is going to determine how good that training is going to be and how well trained you are. I think that definitely holds true. I know for us in the Navy as well, if you got a solid team chief that cares about his people and wants them to learn, then one, you're probably going to have long days, but two, at the end of those long days, you're going to know a lot more than if you have somebody that kind of doesn't really care, isn't motivated anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had, and so as I progressed, as I moved around, I left the 74th and went to 748th. Which was in South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina area, Fort Jackson.
Yeah.
And, I worked for our first sergeant out there, Rick Nimrichter. It was amazing. And still serves the community, in the, up in the DC area.
Okay. Nice.
And so, still just an amazing, benefit to our community.
Yeah.
Because I hear about him in other parts of the world. He probably doesn't ever hear about me, but
yeah,
but I still hear about him.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I was fortunate to have. And then when I was assigned at the 748th, I jumped on. I volunteered to go on a deployment because we really didn't get opportunities to deploy and do things, and so I jumped on a deployment with the 703rd. Out of Fort Knox, Kentucky.
Yeah.
And so I went to Bosnia with them, and that was kind of a joint Army-Navy thing. And so I got to spend some time with some of our Navy partners out there.
Yeah.
So some of the guys that are still in Navy EOD here now, and some that have left. I probably shouldn't do a lot of name dropping, but there was, some guys that I really respect and have done some incredible things in the EOD community. And then there's others that maybe haven't, I don't know, but
there's the gamut.
Yeah. Everything I've done in my career, I've seen the gamut of all different qualities. And,
yeah.
but I'm probably measured in the same way. when I first got to Fort Riley, I don't think that I was an impressive individual to be watched. Like when you looked at me, you were probably like, wow, who is that douchebag?
Not anymore, Randy. Not anymore.
Yeah, the standards have fell at EOD school. My God.
You mentioned Bosnia. How was working in Bosnia?
I liked it. It was a challenging time in my life. It really was. But it was good. It was hard because it was different then. Now I think you have social media and people are in much better contact with their families and know what the hell's going on. Hell, I remember my grandfather died, and I was real upset with my family. It caused me a lot of problems because I didn't find out till 2 weeks after his funeral.
Oh,
I was
really?
upset. It's like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But that in some ways, that makes it a little bit harder when you're there. But no, the mission was fantastic. We had a good time. I don't know if this is the place to talk about all the rules you broke or not, but they had General Order number 1, and you couldn't consume any alcohol. So we followed that rule.
Of course.
Absolutely.
All day, every day.
Yeah. But I remember that, because it was a multinational thing. There was many other countries. And so the Swedish battalion, the Swedbat, they had a bar called the Bomb. And so we also had the Olympics going on. And so the U.S. and Swedes were playing in a soccer game. And so they agreed and we agreed nobody would watch the game. And we met at the Swedbat bar. And they closed it off to everybody else. It was just us Army EOD and the Swede EOD guys. And I think other multinational people could come in. But if you were American, you had to be an EOD guy.
That's awesome.
They didn't want us to get busted. And so we all... we had a great time. Everybody got to watch the Olympic soccer game.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was super cool. So that was fun. But yeah, so it was interesting. Before we got to Bosnia, I remember we traveled. We flew into Germany, and that was kind of interesting because at the time the Barrett rifles were pretty new.
Yeah.
And use the Barretts for SMUD.
Yeah.
And so while we were in the airport, customs was making us go through all of our stuff, and you carry our weapons, and we open up these big ass Barrett sniper rifles, and people walking by were like, "Good God, what the hell are these?" Because they were new at the time. It wasn't something that I think a lot of people seen. So that was interesting. We had those in the airport.
Awesome.
That was kind of impressive.
Yeah.
But we loaded all of our stuff off into buses, and we drove to France, and we went to Angers, France for the French demining course, and so we got to learn how to do demining stuff with the French, and they had some kind of cool technology stuff that they were doing at the time. We got to. They had these crazy fluffy boots you fill up with air, and it displaced.
Really?
Yeah, displaced your body weight across. I don't remember how many square feet was on each boot. It was like a big snowshoe, but filled with air. It was like little air balloons.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
that's got to be interesting.
Yeah, so like and it was designed to be real soft. So if you stepped on something, you would displace for a little weight. It would deform around it, so it wouldn't apply any pressure to pins and pads and
the things that you don't want to have pressure.
yeah. And so it was interesting. You just got to see things and learn the way they do it. They like they put people out in a minefield. They also put a sniper out there because dogs and deer, are as problematic as people would be. So
yeah, that's interesting. You bring that up because I was just talking with Chris Rudiger. His episode just came out recently, and he talked about going down to Gitmo, and that he would work with the Marines, taking care of the minefields. And yeah, he's like, every once in a while, there'd be a deer that would start to wander in. And so that night you'd have venison. Either you eat venison or you might not eat anything again. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was their thing. You don't want them walking up to you or anywhere near you when you're working. So
yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Do you guys is that a lot of what you did was demine and stuff when you were there, or?
Yeah, so that was the whole thing. The so the Bosnians and the Bosnian Muslims, they were not real friendly with each other when after the wall came down.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind. People who were neighbors, Nedge was our interpreter. I don't even know how I remembered that name. But I couldn't. We were talking the other day at work, and I couldn't remember somebody's name that I see every day.
Yeah.
And I just remembered Nedge's name. Blows my mind. Anyway, Nedge was our interpreter, and he would tell stories about how he and his neighbors, they knew each other. They were friends their entire life. They grew up playing as friends. And then when the wall fell, and they went back to the same way things were before. The Serbs and Muslims did not get along, and so they were back fighting. And so at night when they would, they'd all be sitting in their foxholes or their fighting positions, and they're like, 50 to 100 yards apart from each other, but they'd yell back and forth. If they were out of cigarettes, they're like, "Hey, give me some smokes," and they'd be like, "There's so much money," So they'd tie money to a rifle grenade. They wouldn't arm it, but they'd tie money to a rifle grenade and they'd shoot it. The guy would get his money off the rifle grenade and tie a pack of cigarettes back on it and send it back.
No kidding.
Yeah, and because they were friends, but now here they were fighting, at war against each other.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Man, we're a weird species sometimes, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, it's insane. Just because you just happen to be part of a different religion or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't even know where we started. But anyway, it was interesting. So we did a lot of, the rules were different. We weren't supposed to just go out and lift mines.
Okay.
And so if the IPTF, International Police Task Force, there were two retired New York police bomb disposal guys that were on the IPTF.
Yeah.
And so we would, we'd be able to sit down and talk with them and like, hey, we want to go do work.
Right.
And so we wanted to, kind of clean up people's communities too. And so these people the war had like knocked, their buildings were just riddled with bullet holes and, mortars and,
Yeah.
155 rounds. Just everything was blown up, and people are trying to recover their houses and their homes. And so they would bring the stuff out and they would lay it on the side of the street.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so we would pick up ordnance that was obvious out on the side of the street. They'd put stuff out there and put markers in the ground but things that were in the ground that were like landmines, because they mined everything.
Yeah.
If the IPTF were to ask us to come out and respond to something because they walk those areas, then we could respond to it.
Okay.
And so that's where our relationship with IPTF kind of became, hey,
Gotcha. You need to walk over in that area.
Yes.
Because I want to work over there.
Yeah, because like playgrounds and places, because kids,
yeah,
a lot of kids were getting blown up. They used to do the Superman magazines, the comic books. Mm-hmm. And so we used to pass out, we'd go to schools and we'd pass out the little Superman comic books to all the kids.
Yeah.
And because kids weren't supposed to go out in their playgrounds and play because they were mined.
Yeah, that's crazy.
There's minefields out. And so kids were losing limbs all the time. And so we would, if somebody would, because I remember they would tell us, they'd be like, yeah, there's a mine out there. And we're like, we're not going out there. Nedge. What's going on out here? Anyway, but, with the IPTF and our interpreter and we would eventually be able to get out to where we could
do something.
Help out the communities with their ordnance issues.
Prior to going there and doing that, had you done any emplaced mines?
Only in training.
Yeah. How was it going from only doing it in training to taking care of like your first mine or two?
Yeah. So eye-opening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were down there, so obviously there's like the conflict, but then there's the lull in the conflict kind of. When you were going down and taking care of the mines, was added the like probably have security there in case, but was it more of a...
No, we really didn't even have security.
Really?
So it was a little bit different because we weren't really, we had, what were they, Demi and Doble and Bedrock, but there was one up north, I don't remember what the hell we called that place. Anyway, there was one, this is where my age starts to show up, but there was one outpost or one little area that so when we were there, we'd spend 30 days at each site.
Okay.
We'd go from Bedrock to Demi to Doble to Birchco. Is that it? Anyway, we'd go to these different areas, and we'd spend a month
Yeah.
at each area. That way everybody got to kind of explore and get around and see different things. But for the most part, very peaceful, except up north.
Okay.
There was still some conflict up there. So no, EOD was everybody else that left the FOB would have to, they'd have to be in their, log pack with multiple vehicles and people, but EOD could roll out individually by ourselves, and so we did a lot. That's what we did every day.
Yeah.
We'd get up in the morning, we'd eat our breakfast, or we'd do PT and then eat breakfast, shower up, get in the trucks, and we'd go out and we'd kind of just meet people in the streets. We'd stop, talk to them, ask them, what's going on? Is there any ordnance that needs to be picked up? And, we'd stop at the police stations, and, all the police stations they'd have caches that they'd assemble for us, and we'd take that stuff out and we'd detonate it, and then they'd have jerky and plum brandy, and which of course, we couldn't drink.
Yeah. You just look at it, smell it occasionally.
Yeah. We just watched them drink it.
Yeah. No, that's pretty cool. That's it's interesting to hear that, because sometimes you like, obviously I've worked very infrequently with other EOD from other services. Occasionally here and there I have, but sometimes you think, or at least I do, maybe I do. It's just me. Okay. It's just me. You think like you're the kind of exception, right? So in the Philippines, something similar, where if most people went out, they'd have to, have their kit on and do this and that, right? And have a vehicle convoy and a full, like, get it approved all the way up. And we'd just, I got to go over to that base tomorrow, and I'm going to stop at the mall on the way. So,
Yeah.
all right, I'll see you in a little while, and go with one other person, another EOD tech, and it was good to go. It's interesting to see. That's like, it kind of makes sense. Like we have, like, from then till now, like, EOD selection, whether it's no matter what service, it's a thing. So by the time you get done with that, I feel like you're kind of owed a little bit of leeway, and you, for the most part, we are a little bit more responsible than maybe the average person.
I don't know if we were responsible at the time.
There's an illusion of responsibility.
Yeah, there was one evening on our way back from we removed some ordnance, and I don't remember if there was landmines. I think maybe landmines involved in that too. Removed some ordnance from a community area. I don't know if it was like a playground or a soccer field or something, but it was, it was a big deal to the community, and they were like, "Hey, come back. We want, let's stay here and do we're gonna do this barbecue."
Yeah.
And they had chicken and all kinds of food and everything. And so we did. We hung out, and again, all of these things I don't think we were really encouraged or even allowed to do.
Yeah.
But it was important to us because these people, you had to build a relationship with them. Mm-hmm. And so we would do things to try to help them out and build some trust. And then they would, point things out to us and help us, do more things for them. We wanted to stay busy, and I think they wanted their stuff cleaned up.
Yeah.
They had the barbecue, and we hung out there, and I'll just mention the last name, Feldy. And Mark Fucci. Remember I talked about Mark Fucci? He passed recently, a couple of years ago, but he was a really good guy. Which will bring me to another story in a minute.
All right.
Anyway, they were at the barbecue, and as we left, you don't realize how much you probably had to drink until you get into the car, and and at that time it was a Humvee. Anyway, Beldy had evidently backed into a car on the way out. And so anyway, so we made it back to base, and we went to bed, and then the next day they started dealing with the oh yeah, by the way, last night we backed into a car, and they're like, why didn't you say something last night? Well, anyway, everybody was. Feldy was probably the most sober one of the bunch, but yeah, it was.
Sometimes it's important to tell the correct information at the correct time.
Yeah, and I think he was riding around with Mark. I think Mark Fucci was his team leader at the time, and so Mark. So one of my first experiences with Mark Fucci. Mark, and I don't want to say anything bad about Mark, but you rarely seen Mark when he didn't have a cup of Kool-Aid with some vodka in it.
Yeah.
Always. Always. And so he's out at the range, right? We used to do target insertions on the range, and so we would always be out on the ranges on Fort Riley, Kansas. We could be out on the ranges. EOD was really the only people allowed out on the range.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the guy, but there was an officer out there, Colonel, I think, like a brigade commander, and Mark was evidently in the wrong uniform or something, wasn't wearing his helmet properly or something. Anyway, Mark's out on the range, and he's doing his thing, and he's got his cup of Kool-Aid in his hand. And this kid rolls up in a Humvee because his boss wants him to tell him that he's supposed to be doing whatever the hell it was that he was doing wrong, to make that correction. And Mark was quick to point out that he wasn't authorized to be in that area, and he needed to turn around and get the hell out of there. As Mark then jumped in his vehicle and went further inside with his Kool-Aid. He's like, yeah, you're not allowed to be downrange, so you need to get out of here. I don't remember exactly but Mark was a spirited guy, really good guy.
That's awesome. I know if I leave right now, he's going to be waiting, so I'm just going to go further in.
He did.
That's awesome.
And told them they had to get the hell out.
I love it. Nice. Something that we'll get to in a minute, but so when we trying to describe without going too far how we kind of assess things, right? So for those listening and don't really know anything about EOD, but just like hearing us weirdos talk to each other, appreciate you listening, first of all. But if we want to know what's going on inside of a munition, we're gonna X-ray it, right? Mm-hmm. So then we can see what's going on and kind of make assessments on what we need to do. Back in the day, it was a little different. Not quite as easy as it is now. When did you start doing X-ray? Did you guys have any X-ray stuff when you were the 74th or the what was it, the second one you went to?
748.
748th. I was going to say 784th, but I knew I was going to be wrong. So
Fort Riley to Fort Jackson. We did. We had the old snow cone maker. That's what we used to call it.
Yeah.
The snow cone maker, the Mark 32, the original one, the blue, the big square blue box. And I think we got one at 2.2.
Yeah.
Another right? 2.2. Everybody's like, what? 2.2.
Yeah. It's the second 2.
Yeah. It is. Because, it comes after 2.1.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, it was the old Mark 32. And so, we had them. And they were problematic, but they worked. So we did, you used to have to take the Mark 32, you'd go warm it up, right? You'd go set it off to the side and you'd blast a couple pulses. And then you'd go down and pick it up, and then you take it and you get your X-ray, right? Because you kind of wanted to warm the tube up.
Okay.
And at the time, did I know anything about X-rays? No.
Let me guess where you stood.
Yeah. But we used wet film.
Yeah.
And so I don't even think, I think at the time we were using TPX film, which
not even Polaroid?
Today, well, it was Polaroid TPX.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So you had 803 and
okay.
And so you're familiar with the 803 film, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a newer development.
I was much more advanced.
TPX is like the old, remember you used to see the old doctors? We literally had like a white screen. We'd take a white screen. Well, I guess we probably did that later on when I went to Belvoir, but we used to have to hold it up to the light.
Okay.
You'd take your TPX, you'd have to hold it up to the light and look through it to see, because it was the blue film that you looked through, like an old doctor's X-ray of a.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we used. And so it was much different because you had to be in an area, and if it was night, you'd have to get a flashlight behind it. You use like a piece of paper or something, put it up against a piece of paper with a flashlight behind it, and try to ascertain what you had going on inside of this package based off this TPX film. So it was completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now, from where we've moved, and then 803 was cool because 803 film was that, black and white, film, I guess.
Yeah.
So that was good because you didn't have to, look through it anymore. But then you'd have to
hope that it was still good.
Yeah.
Even if it was 100% within dates.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And in the fluid. So like you used to have to pull the handle.
Yeah.
On the processing machine. So
and it would spread this like fluid over it, right?
Yeah. It was literally like a Polaroid.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if anybody even knows what the Polaroid cameras are, but you'd snap that picture in a Polaroid camera and it would push that picture out.
Yeah.
But as processed, as it came through the rollers, it would squoze out that fluid in those little packets and push it across the inside of that film, and you'd be able to, and then it would process your film and you'd be able to see that picture. Well, our machine's very similar to that. You'd pull that handle. And some guys thought that they were trying to start a damn lawnmower. They'd pull it so damn fast. And then every film that went through it, you're like, good God, moron, what the hell are you doing? Slow down. Take the emotion out of it a little bit.
Yeah.
And, because you had to pull it kind of slow. So that gave that packet enough time to kind of evenly squeeze out across the whole film plane. And then you'd have to let it sit there for about a minute to process in darkness. And then you'd expose your film and you'd be like, oh, there's my picture.
Yeah.
And then you'd be able to determine whether you hit it with too many pulses or not enough pulses.
And then go through the whole process again.
Start all over again. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the only thing people nowadays know, and you probably won't know, no offense, is about Polaroid is the song Shake It Like a Polaroid. They have no idea what it means, but I remember actually like taking a picture with the Polaroid, having it come out, and then literally just sitting there and shaking it.
Yeah. Yeah. Helping that fluid dispense a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny that's most people hearing that song, Shake It Like a Polaroid, probably have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah. And I don't even know what the hell that song is.
You see, that's not a bad thing, Randy. It's actually sad that I do know what it is. So
yeah. Because, looking at you, I think your hair is grayer than mine.
It's terrible.
And I got you beat by like many years, I'm sure.
At least 3.
I was thinking 2, but okay. 3.
Yeah. My bad. And what's sad is I've probably got more fake teeth than you too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, you remember the hockey game?
Yes. Oh, my goodness. Okay. That's a good one. So for everybody out there, I'm very fond of Randy. He's a very good friend, and he will always make sure to put you in the best light. And if you know Randy, and if you don't, you're about to find out something about him. He loves hockey. And he invited me to a hockey game one time. So I went, and I was working in, I think it was an FTX at the time, and I had a fake tooth, and I was building up a training aid V-bid, and so I stripped some wires, and it popped my tooth out, and I couldn't find it. So I went back, I got this like little retainer thing, but I talked with a huge lisp. And so I wouldn't wear the retainer most of the time. And I didn't care. I was already married. She's, my poor wife she was already committed. So I didn't have to worry. But I go to this game, and I don't realize until I get there that I didn't bring my teeth. So again, like I said, Randy always making sure that he's going to put you and your comfortability first. We're sitting there, and there's two
It's
nice.
a hockey game.
It is a hockey game. And actually he did. He kind of made me
bench full of people
cool.
with the same. Yeah.
They just had a good excuse why they did.
But they were actually on the ice.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a couple ladies, and Randy thought that he would have fun at my expense, and was like, "Hey, do you know my friend Jerron?" And I don't remember all that was said, but at some point he mentioned, because one of them was like a dentist or something, or had some teeth thing, and you mentioned very nonchalantly how I didn't have teeth, but you did say that I was playing hockey or something, and that's what happened. So I guess I looked kind of cool rather than my teeth just fly out because I'm old and decrepit. But
there was somebody else there, and that's the reason that what the hell was the story behind? Because I want to put it out there clear that I was not like working the ladies.
No, he was not.
Yeah.
Like it was one of those. Yeah, it was specifically like, I can't remember exactly how we started talking, but then the only reason why Randy talked to them was to get to the point where I didn't have teeth and to highlight that to them. It had nothing to do with the ladies themselves. It was purely like, how do we get Jerron to look even worse than he is?
I think I was just trying to get you to talk.
You were, and I was trying so hard not to. And eventually I had to give in. It was pretty funny. I do enjoy that. Had a good time. No shame.
But your grill looks nice.
Ah, thank you.
Yeah.
The Navy's done well.
Yeah. I got a couple fake ones too.
Yeah.
Probably as a result of hockey, though.
So you got an actual good excuse.
Well, I think mine are because I would, like crack them and break them and, from, I don't know, getting slaughtered on the ice.
Yeah.
And then they would fall apart weeks later, but I'd go to the dentist and they're like, ooh, this one needs to be, we need to put a crown on this or something. And I'm like, oh, damn.
I actually do have I had to get a crown put on, and I 100% thought the dentist was joking when he asked if I wanted a gold tooth. And I was like, sure. So I come back like a month later when it's ready. Sure enough, I've got a gold tooth now. I legitimately thought he was joking. And I walk into that office, and there's a gold tooth sitting on a tray. I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're really doing this.
Son of a bitch. So which one is it? Oh, I guess I can see it. Uh-huh. That's gold. That's nice.
So now, if somebody sees me on the street, you can probably get $20 extra if you knock me out and rip out a tooth. It turns out they're not actually like ridiculously expensive, which is a little bit disappointing, but
yeah,
it's about $20. So if I ever get destitute,
for the tooth was only $20.
Yeah, if you because the percentage of gold it is, I'm sure it costs like way more than that if you actually pay to get it put in, but the amount of gold or whatever that's in it, if you were to melt it down, the dentist was like, yeah, it's like an extra like 20 to $80, something like that.
I think this one right here, this porcelain piece of crap, was like about 10 grand at the end of it.
Yeah.
When I finally got it all done and over with.
Well, that's, yeah, like the cost to put it in and to shape it and all that stuff makes the tooth itself worth a lot. But the actual gold, if you just do it for gold, turns out it's not that lucrative of a thing. So
Interesting.
Yeah. But I guess I got 26 more to go and I'll have a full set.
Yeah. So what were we talking about? X-rays.
Yeah, we were talking about X-rays. Kind of went off on a tangent there.
We did. Yeah.
But yeah, so doing the wet film, shaking it like a Polaroid, and then now it's significantly easier with the whole digital system and plugging it into a computer. And
yeah, I'm behind. It's kind of, so when I first started, one of my responsibilities was I taught some of the radiography at 2-2. 2-2, by the way, Training and Evaluation Unit 2.
Yeah.
We just TEU 2, we just 2-2.
Nice.
Yeah, 2-2.
You're a pro at this, Randy.
Yeah. Anyway, so I speak to my family back home, and you don't realize how we're always using acronyms and shaving things down. You know, we can say a lot with very few syllables, and people standing around us look at us with their mouths open like, what the hell did he just say?
Right.
And my family is like that a lot, because I'll say things and they're like, I don't know what the hell you just said.
Yeah.
You just wasted a bunch of oxygen.
Right. My wife does that to me too.
Yeah.
I'll be talking and she's like, if you're not going to tell me what you're saying, then I'm going to stop listening. Like,
Yeah.
oh, that's fair.
Yeah, which is, and then I try to tell my family, that's why what I do really isn't that important, because you don't even understand it.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah. You don't even try to explain things, because it's
Yeah,
it's not even worth understanding.
exactly.
But at any rate, I used to teach the radiography at 2-2 when I first started. That was one of the, it was kind of outside my division. I would go down to the surface division and teach that. And it was all about wet film. And then we evolved and went a little bit digital to computed radiography, right? So we kind of went from the scanner process, the phosphor panels and the scanners. And then, and that was still, not a real good quality image.
Right.
But, so I understood that stuff and had been part of, we reached out to a lot of professionals when my next step in my career. I did a lot of radiography at one point at one of my jobs. And so we reached out to professionals at multiple different levels. But we actually, had to go through a radiography course at some point to learn about radiography and get better at it. And I think so that we would ensure we were doing safety, better, safer, activities. Because I think the some of the radiography tools that we were using were maybe a little different.
Yeah.
But we still use the same thing that everybody else uses, the golden generators, and with that we'd use started out with wet film, and I think the wet film that we've always had here has always been 803 or above, right? So 803, then we stepped into ScanX, and then MMX, and I don't think I'm wrong mentioning any of these names, but and that was all CR type computed radiography, so still not good. And now they do DR.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you what, man, I am so far behind on where it's elevated, because my job kind of took me one direction where I was, kind of making what we do at work a better program on that side. So I kind of stepped away a little bit from radiography, and I almost shoot myself in the foot. Or I kind of feel like I did, because maybe I should have went that direction rather than the direction I went, because I think there's a lot of opportunity out there right now, and I truly would be interested in getting back into that realm. I think that because radiography, especially for what we do in our community, is so important and so much better than it ever has been.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's I'm kind of a nerd just in general, and I really like the radiography side of things. It's cool to, you know, figure out how many x-rays you're going to send down range onto your, you know, whatever panel you're using, run that through now the computer and have it come back and you to actually see, like, you basically are a not buff flying version of Superman, because you get to see inside of things.
It's amazing.
And we can do that, right? Like when I was a kid, it was just in a cartoon or the dentist, right? Or at the doctor's office, right? Had no idea that at some point in my life I was going to be able to use, honestly, it's actually minimal amounts of like gear to go down range and x-ray a piece of ordnance and be able to see what it's actually doing inside, so that you can then determine what you need to do to make it not blow up,
right? Or
to make it blow up. Depends on what you want to do that day.
Right.
But yeah, it's amazing how far it's come. And it's, you know, to kind of explain to those who don't know, you know, I'm going to use random numbers here, but let's say you want to see inside of a piece of ordnance. With the old system, with the wet film, you may have to shoot 1,000 pulses downrange. And with these new systems, with the technology where it's gone, it's in the tens, and you can actually see something. So it's getting exponentially better to be able to allow us to, one, on the EOD side, obviously you want to spend less time downrange, because the more time you're down on something, the more of a chance there is that something goes wrong while you're down there. But, you know, you can get a better image with less time downrange to be able to see stuff that is just, it's super clear. It is like the cartoons when I was a kid, where you'd see the x-ray image and it's like this perfect inside of whatever. You see exactly what it is, and now you actually can. You don't have to like imagine that this line is that, and
yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's impressive.
But yeah, I kind of talk about what you did. So you're kind of the, you know, I know you don't maybe necessarily think this, but you're like I would say most of the people that I know would say that you're the reason why we have the level of knowledge in our radiological mission that we do. The program that, you know, you came in and helped start up and have ran for the last, how long have you been running the program at 22?
Well, I started at 22 in January 2008. I became a federal employee, I guess, in 2010. So yeah, I mean, been there like it's 6 or 7 days.
Yeah. And it's crazy in that form how far we've gotten, and all the pain that you've gone through to enable us to have, you know, the access to sources at an acceptable level to actually train on. And by sources, I mean radiological sources. That, you know, that's one of our missions, is just recovering radiological sources if we need to, right? So we, up to that point though, it's a lot of like fake tools, or it costs a lot of money to bring someone that has access to that stuff in to a training site. And then there's a lot that goes on with that. And with the program that you stood up and have ran for, 6 or 7 days, getting us access to a variety of sources to then go in and train on and use our TTPs and use our tools, which this is a thing that I think you don't realize how important it is until you can't do it, which is use your tools the way they're actually supposed to be used, right? Like have something that actually makes your tool does what it's going to do in real life if you had to do this mission for real.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the argument a little bit when we're I think, working to achieve some of the things that we want to do. So I want to go back and not steal other people's thunder. I think Rob McHugh, and I'm not sure he was the first one, but Rob McHugh was the LCPO in the division that I work in now. At the time, before I was ever there, it was his brainchild or his era, the leadership around him at the time. I think they started the whole program that we're in now. And they did hire somebody before me, and an angry old guy. and I don't know that he was the right fit because because we used to do things very different. It was very electronic.
Okay.
And so we'd be down in the fist, what I'm referring to anyway. We'd been out on the fist, full immersion scenario trainer. Anyway, Anyway, we'd be down there working, resetting all the training area up for the next mission that we were going to do. And we'd be discussing, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? Or wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? PK. I shouldn't throw a bunch of names, but it was PK and I were down there always, like, hey, we could do this and we could do this. And then we'd stop and occasionally maybe even, like in the evening, after we're done working, we'd burn a heater and have a beer or something, and we'd sit there and bullshit and talk about, just dreaming, spitballing ideas that we could do if we had, if we had a radiological source and we could do this with it. Wouldn't it be great if we could, and the idea at the time was, if you had this hot source and you had guys and they were doing all of these other things to get to it, wouldn't it be cool if we could like seamlessly remove this source once they determine what they've got and they come up with a plan, this is how we're going to attack this, then we could like seamlessly, without stopping anything or without, changing any aspect of the training area, we could, remove a source from the situation and, reduce that radiation hazard. And that's kind of what we talked about a lot. And then they decided the Navy changed policy and they were like, hey, this has to be a federal position. You can no longer have contractors. And that's when everybody was kind of nudging me in the arm. Like, hey, remember all those conversations we had? If you applied, you might actually have a chance of getting this job. Why don't you apply for this job? And so I did. That's when I put in my application for that position. And then from that point, they'd kind of already started that process, but nothing really ever came from it. And the guy that was there before us was, anytime we'd take something to him and say, hey, Larry, if we could do this. And Larry was like, absolutely not. That would be dangerous. We're going to do it this way, And so that's kind of where they were like, Randy, we've got to. And so now we have a program. Like if you went out to a national laboratory and you were to pay for it, you'd pay, upwards of $50,000 probably for a couple of days worth of training with radiological sources, and it would require 9 to 12 months worth of planning to get to the period to. And so now our program is literally set up for the purpose of training, and it doesn't take me. We don't appreciate it if you gave me 30 minutes of notice, but I could have it set up safely in 30 minutes, and we can run a scenario that we have scenarios that are pre-set up so that we know without a doubt if somebody has to set up a scenario today, right now, we can within 30 minutes have it set up safe and be ready to run a team and no issues. And that's inconceivable if you went out to any of the national labs, because they have to have like a safety committee. They'd have to have like a discussion group sit down and, They'd have to talk about it for a couple of weeks. How would we make that safe? Would we really let people walk in there?
Right.
How close would we let people get? So anyway, we've got all of our scenarios already pre-scaled in. So it works really, really well.
Yeah.
And that was the goal, to create something like if you had something that happened in the world and you had to send our guys in there, they could walk in with the tools that they are going to deploy with. They could walk in with those tools, know exactly how those tools are going to respond, know exactly what those numbers mean to them,
Right.
and what safety implications are present based off of the information they're receiving from their tools. Do we move forward? Do we stop? Do we back out, regroup? Like all of these different things, what level or what degree of, safety, where are we at? What can we do? What should we do? What's the best course of action?
Yeah.
And so that's where because we've had a lot of people come in and say, hey, we can do this electronically. We got this gadget and it emits this signal as you get closer to it, because, all wavelength, everything, they're based off 1 over R squared. And so, so doesn't radiation.
Right.
And so they're like, yeah, it's just like radiation, but it's not, because that's not the tool that they're going to deploy with.
Exactly.
And so these guys need to be confident in the equipment that they have.
Yeah.
And so we do that.
And I think because radiological anything is, most people, I think, have a fear of it initially, right? Because you see on the news, and and then just the symbol itself it's scary looking.
Oh my God.
But there's generally a fear of it, and if you're working with not it, even if the tools act the same way, it's different than when you get tasked with doing that mission, and now you have to go down and actually recover this source and put it into something that's going to block the radiation from affecting you. But getting down there, you're going to be exposed to what some people may think are like super high levels, and in your head, oh my gosh, I'm going to like birth elephants instead of children, and it turns out that's not the case. You get used to, Randy used to yell at me all the time when I worked under him over there that, just because you can doesn't mean you should. But so obviously you can't get too comfortable and just, stand on top of something. But understanding that there's a significant, a not negligible amount of radiation coming off of the sources that we have. So you actually have to plan for something. And then you go down range where it's actually the radiation coming off of that at a fully acceptable and not harmful level to a human. But again, it's not a negligible amount. So you actually have to plan, go down range, do what you need to do, and then come up range. Whereas if you go with, call them button sources, but basically stuff that has so little radiation that it's not even monitored by anybody anywhere. We used to do it that way. And it was so frustrating as the individual going down range and having to pretend that these insignificant numbers are actually something. And then at those insignificant number levels, it varies so much that it was just so frustrating when we would have to work in those realms.
I remember the first weeks, maybe even months after we got our sources, the very first couple of teams that were ever exposed to them. And we were even very cautious, overly cautious, because we didn't want to make any mistakes. Mm-hmm. Oh, God, that's going to bring me to another story about OC. At any rate, we were very, I got to be careful. Anyway, super cautious, and we didn't want anybody to, do something that would harm themselves or put the permit in jeopardy.
Right.
The command so we did everything. We were very, very structured, it was terrible. Well, it wasn't terrible. I mean, it was good, but
yeah.
But the very first time a team walked in, and their, tools started responding to radiation. They were not comfortable. They were backing out. They're trying to, tripping over each other, trying to get the hell out of a room. And we're like, and we were there, and we're like, why what's going on? And they're like, yeah, it's right in here. And we're like, yeah, okay. So aren't you going to go in? No, it's like we're getting radiation. And I'm like, yeah. How bad is it? Because our tools, we teach them, when does it get bad?
Yeah.
And so they're not supposed to look immediately at their to determine what dose it is, but they have a tool that they can, that gives them some preliminary information that they know. It's a search tool that helps guide them to it. But when it starts ramping up the numbers, they were like, oh my God, they're getting all fidgety and worried. And, and the readings really weren't that high.
Right.
And we teach them that, that, hey, this thing has to get to this number, this level before you really should be concerned to any degree, because you're really safe until you've gotten to this number. And if you're not there yet, then it's okay. Keep pressing on. And boy, I tell you what, they were uncomfortable initially.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was fun to watch.
I think that's the radiation program is a good kind of analogy for really anything we do, right? If you IEDs, if you just talk about it, can be the scariest thing in the world. But as you train on it, and the more you train on it, you're still going to take all the precautions. But it becomes not this mythical creature. It becomes an executable problem that you can solve.
Manageable.
Yeah, a manageable problem. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And and then it almost becomes fun.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, I think there was even a point in Tutu's history, and I don't know, was it Mike that did it? But somebody, the dog shockers.
Yeah.
But the dog shockers, so like when you violated a penalty on some IEDs and you were wearing a dog shocker, on your ankle or your wrist or whatever, it would shock you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you would literally be motivated, because during training people are like, yeah, you're just gaming it. You don't care.
Exactly.
But if you're wearing a dog shocker,
nobody wants to get shot.
all of a sudden you care a little bit more.
Yep.
And so when I first started here, though, we used we'd have they had explosive charges. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say explosive, like shock tube,
like squibs
and shock tubes.
Yeah,
but we can't, I guess, do that anymore. But it used to give one hell of a pretty good boom.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, I remember multiple of those.
Yeah, and I think when those went away, that's when they decided, let's do the shockers.
Yeah, because having some type of feedback, it's the same thought process. Why training with blanks is not necessarily the best answer to get people to get behind cover. Paintballs and paint, you'll get behind cover.
Right.
You'll learn the difference between cover and concealment.
Right.
Because
it's not just the color, because it hurts.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, and I mean, I can't necessarily apologize to you, Randy, because I enjoyed doing it. So it's not like I'm actually sorry, but I know I'm supposed to say I'm sorry. I remember we used to take extra EPDs downrange that weren't ours, and then leave those laying around with significantly higher numbers than we were supposed to have. And Randy as good as his job, because even though it happened more than twice, every single time Randy was like, took it seriously, because he was like, probably one of the things we didn't understand as much as you is your actual job depended on us not having done that for real.
Well,
we're terrible. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I don't know that I would have been held responsible for, yes. I mean, I'm sure somebody would dig back and look and be like, why did they not know not to do that?
Yeah.
But if you knew not to do that, and I was like, if I covered my ass on that respect, I'd be okay. But yeah, But you guys did. I remember that's happened several times. Somebody'd come back and be like, "Oh my God, look how much dose this guy got." And I'm like, "Jesus Christ, who'd that happen? What were you doing?" But that really did happen with, not really, really bad. But when we first got the sources, I remember, one of the teams was just right behind us there, casemate, and two of the guys like Troy, and damn, who's the other guy? Anyway, they got the highest doses of anybody at 2.2 in a short period of time.
Yeah.
That we've ever had. And they are the reason that we now have reduced that to an acceptable number that each team member, like when they reach a particular value on their EPD, that's when we say, okay, you can no longer participate. You're going to have to sit this out, and somebody else is going to, because we do try to execute things a little, we don't want people to not exercise what we refer to as a LARA, as little as reasonably achievable. And so, you go in, you do what needs to be done, and you get out. Mm-hmm. And then if you got something to do, you go back in, you get done what you got to get done, and then you get out. But you plan it, and you methodically, you don't run in and dance around and panic. You just,
some people do.
But after the third or fourth time they're doing it, they're like, oh yeah, this is not a problem.
Right.
I wish, wouldn't it be great if they could train everybody in America like that on, if you could just like have a source that you could go in and teach all the kids in school and be like, this is how simple this is. It's really not bad. Like you got there's even podcasters and people on TV. They're like, oh my God, the radiation is so bad. This could kill you.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, we found this uranium ore, and oh my God. And you're like, seriously? You could eat that stuff, and the heavy metal poisoning would get to you before the radiation would, Anyway.
But we are not condoning eating it.
Yes, we do not condone eating uranium. Would be a really bad idea.
Oh man. I was trying to think of, I thought of something on.
Yeah, well, I told you that I had a story.
Oh yeah.
It's like OC. So like when you just worry about things that could go wrong, and as it turned out, nothing terrible happened in this case, but terrible things can happen. So you have to, those 1 in a millions, you have to account for that.
Right.
And so, we did have a situation where, somebody that didn't have access got access and ended up in a training area where we were going to conduct training and had a source that we had left out. Didn't affect him. He wasn't in that radiation area at the time. But at the time, we didn't know it. And so it had caused a panic for me, and I was worried about it. And then we caused from our commander down, we self-reported to our commander and said, hey, we may have had this issue.
Yeah.
We need to look at this. And so we got our training safety and everybody involved in it. And I was sweating because I was like, oof, man, I may have really just done a dumb thing. And, but it had everything to do with, that was when Tommy and Travarius and OC was brand new, just got there. And, And Dylan Spencer and I were down training teams. Dylan was done, and I said, "Dylan, just leave that source right there. I'm gonna get to that in a minute with these guys because they were new sources." Mm-hmm. And then Trevor was up at the command, and he knew what was going on, and he wasn't coming down. So it was just me and Dylan and Trevor, the only 3 people there that had keys to that. So I rolled the door down, locked it. It was good to go, right? No issues. Trevor's not coming down. Dylan left. He's gone for the weekend. It was a Friday evening. And sure enough, Trevor gives OC a key and says, hey, I need you to go down and get this stuff because you're going to do this class on Monday. So get all the stuff ready. So I'm over training my guys next door, not aware that he opened up the door and ran in and got his stuff and closed the door and left.
Yeah.
But when I walked over there and realized because he had knocked it over. Yeah. And I was like, well, what the hell? But it was good because it completely wasn't, it actually made it further away from him, and so it did not put him in an area where he was ever in any issue. But yeah, I was concerned, and yeah.
And it's funny too, because like not even knowing which source it was, but just knowing even the highest strength source that we have that is there, it's still not going to be an issue as far as like a danger physically to the person.
No, in hindsight, it was more a danger the way that we had the language we use in our instruction.
Right. And that's I think something that like you said, people in America don't realize is there's language in a certain way that is there to keep people at certain levels. Just because they go past that level does not mean that it's now a physical, like they are going to have physical problems because of it. In fact, most of the time, past that level, you got to go way past that level. We keep things significantly safer, and for a reason, right? You don't want to have, that's what it was. Actually, that's what I was thinking of before. In a lot of things we say we have minimums for a reason, right? Well, in radiation, you have a maximum, but our goal is not to get to that maximum, right? In fact, as much as possible, like you said, as low as reasonably achievable, we want to keep it as low as possible, which is another reason why we have our maximum set significantly lower, because there are some people that,
there are people that they want to try to get that biggest number because they're going to win a prize.
Yeah.
And I point out to them all the time, like, it's Russian roulette.
Yeah.
I mean, it would take the average human a lot, like, millions of micro, right? To put themselves in a position where they, to put themselves in a 1% position, right? But then there's those individuals that may be a little less than that, maybe thousands of micro. And so why would you stand
right
in a millifield?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. For a long period of time, because,
yeah,
you just don't know.
Exactly.
So why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just cuz, Randy. Just cuz.
Yeah.
When you took that job, did you think it was going to be more like playing with the sources and setting up drills, or what it actually was, which is you hiding out in your little shack and just doing administrative monotony?
So, no, that's a good point. So initially we were dreaming up some really cool stuff. And I think we get to do cool stuff with the sources because we manage the program really, really well. But yeah, I didn't realize what I didn't know about the program is that to do it requires the radiation health side of it.
Yeah.
And so that is the part it's very administrative. It is and I do not like administrative stuff. Yeah. I'm not the admin guy. I really don't like being pinned down behind a keyboard. And so, and then to work with the database that we're provided, the Navy has the brightest minds that come up with some of the best software. I mean, anybody that's used NMCI, we are so fortunate. But the software that I get to use even goes beyond the level of NMCI. It is so it's a database that's just fun.
I've seen how excited you are when you're in depth trying to finish that monthly report or whatever. Oh man, I've seen how excited you get.
Yeah.
I'm just happy.
Yeah. And then, and the thing that used to get to me about that, because it's that database that you will spend hours inputting data. And then, how we get distractions that occur in the office all the time. Mm-hmm. Somebody's like, Randy, constantly something's going on. And so somebody comes in, they bend your ear, you turn, and you're like, oh, and you walk away for 3 minutes, you come back, and it timed out. And the 2.5 hours you just put all that data in because you didn't hit apply. When you looked to the left and said, what? If I'd have just hit apply before I got up and walked away, it would still all be there. But I never learned. Somebody would come and be like, hey, Randy. And I'd be like, yeah. Hey, could you, yeah, give me a second. And I'd get up and I'd walk out and I'd come back and I'm like, no, you know.
I did it again.
It's all gone. Yeah. Oh my God. And then, you know, they like because they sent some people down to help me because I had absolutely no idea what the hell I'm doing. It's a medical program.
Yeah.
And I'm not a medical guy. And so I reached out and yeah, it's amazing. So I'm gonna throw some names out there. When I was asking for people that I can get in contact with, they're like, yeah, you need to call John Wayne and William Wallace. And I'm like, fuck you. Quit messing around. I mean, I'm serious, you know. And they're like, no, serious. That's his name. Here's his number, and I'll be damned. These men exist. They're part of the. They're part of. Yeah. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah. You might want to bleep me out there.
That's how I know you at some point got fully indoctrinated into the Navy, because you just don't believe anything anyone tells.
But yeah, so they you know, anyway, so I contact these guys. They come down. They help me, you know, set the system up and show me how, you know, what I should be doing, and it's kind of a complicated database, and but anyway, it's very. Yeah, it's not my thing, you know. So it's administrative, and but we, you know, it was a huge learning curve for me, because the world that I live in now is all, you know, it's all NRC, Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and radiation health, and so if you can speak, and you know, and then transportation. I mean, that's a hurdle too. It's like, ooh.
Wow, that's another one that we always used to mess with you on.
Yeah, but like moving things from, you know, across state lines, going. You know, we've recently taken some stuff. You know, but it's a challenge. It's like, wow, you know, it gets real, and you're like, wow, this is, you know, it's not. And there are some people out there like, yeah, it's not a big deal. I do it every day. That's what I do. I'm a transportation guy, but my deal is I'm an instructor.
Right. Yeah. I don't.
And my collateral duty is radiation safety officer. And by the way, if that program is going to work, you got to also run this radiation health thing. Ooh, and if you have to transport this stuff, somebody's going to have to do that too. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I am like literally, you know, covering down a couple different bases. So it's.
Did you enjoy when you would get a new instructor in radiological hazards division, or nuclear hazards division? That's what it was. Yeah. And they would get the hazmat course, and then we would tell them to come back and tell you, after you specifically told them before, they're going to say you don't have to take the transportation test, but you need to stay and take the transportation test. And we would always tell people to come back and tell you that they didn't take it.
But Scotty Davis didn't.
I know.
Yeah. What the hell?
Most of the time we were joking.
Yeah. But he was like, yeah, I didn't tell you. They said I didn't need it. I'm like, seriously? Yeah. Yeah, that was cool.
That's good stuff. When you started working for the Navy in that position, take the position out of it, but how weird were we compared to your Army EOD techs that you worked with prior?
Well, I'm no longer homophobic. I think that's the way that it's been described many times. Is like, yeah, because it's a much small team. You know, you guys. I'll be honest with you. When I had my deployment to Bosnia, it was we kind of did the Army Navy. You know, it was both Army Navy. So I had Billy V, and then when he left, then I think Country came in behind him.
Okay.
And those were the two Navy guys that I pretty much spent my time with.
Yeah.
In Bosnia, and it was the Navy guys are so accustomed to just close quarters, just kind of living on top of each other and not really caring what the other guy's doing. Can just kind of like blow it off.
Yeah.
Hang the sock on the door handle. That means I'm busy doing. I'm either talking with my wife or she sent me something that's personal, and I'm in here. I want some alone time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You probably don't want to walk in and see what's happening.
Right.
You probably won't be able to sleep in here again if you did, So anyway, I think the Navy guys were very accustomed to that, and we weren't. I don't know what it is with the Navy or with the Army's culture. It was not like that. And so, yeah, when I was hired there, it was like very, I'll even say something I probably shouldn't say. I don't know that people would understand it, but I used to joke about it because, how Tommy's always like all handsy and touchy-feely all the time.
Yeah.
He'd always try to hit your shut-off valve, and you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And so, there's a couple times I've said it, and I said, he's the only man that's ever been inside of me. And people look at me and they're like, what the hell? What a weird ass thing. But Tom would always try to do your shut off valve thing. Yeah. But literally, that's, I really don't think he was ever like, but,
yeah,
but he'd always inappropriately yeah, maybe you ought to scrub his name so that.
I will. He'll know exactly who it is, though.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, so I joke about that, and I say things like that, and people look at me and they're like, what the hell are you talking about? So yeah, it took me a while to be able to be, because when you resist with this group,
it's so much worse.
Yeah. So yeah, and it is. It's much worse. Oh. And then this is a hard thing for people to learn, or like when I say it, I'm like, it's a lot less painful if you push. And so by that I mean, you just if you just take it, they'll stop. They'll get bored with it. It's like kids,
That's very true.
If a kid pokes another kid and they react to it, and they're like, "Mom, tell them," and then they'll poke them again. They'll just keep poking them because it's so funny. But if you just ignore them, they'll get bored and they'll leave and they'll stop. And so yeah, that's kind of how, you have to. You just have to accept it.
Yeah.
Just push. It'll hurt a lot less.
And it's something that I've heard a bunch, and I think it's true. Like, we are sometimes ruthless to each other.
Yeah.
But usually, if you're never getting picked on, people probably don't like you.
Right. And yeah. And so it's fun to even, you can even make fun of yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
You can, like some of the stories that we talk about here. Like, I wore a Navy outfit once.
Oh, I remember.
And it was just stupid. I mean, I look like, if people see it, they're like, I look like Gopher on the Love Boat back in the day. You did. And so.
Can I put more context to it?
Sure.
Because people will absolutely enjoy. So this is another great description of how far Randy came. So he didn't just wear an interesting looking uniform. He wore beautiful, beautiful white shorts, a nice button down white collared t-shirt, an old school white Navy anchor hat, to a change of command.
No, I think it was just a whites inspection.
Oh, that's right. It was the whites inspection. Yep.
Yeah.
Still,
And
at the end of the day, it's the whole command outside, and then wonderful Randy comes. Oh my goodness, that made it. That was awesome.
Well, and so the division I work in, and we're so fortunate. It's awesome because I don't think everybody probably hasn't seen. We have a little isolated area that we work in, and so we get to control access in and out.
Yep.
And very interesting because we get away with shenanigans that, we would embarrass people in a bank or a hospital. It's just, or just out in this Walmart or something, because the things we do just sometimes are less socially understood.
Yes.
But we have fun with it because, it's a small team thing, I think.
It is, yeah.
I don't even remember where the hell I was going with this. But
you wore the uniform?
Yeah. I had something that I was going to try to go to. But yes, at any rate, during that, was it Dave Hall? Was he the CMC at the time?
Yep. And
so he sent an email to the command, and he said, hey, on such and such a date, we're having a tropical whites inspection. Everybody get their whites ready and blah, blah, blah. And, he got blasted with a bunch of reply emails. Hey, tropical whites? The hell? We're in Virginia Beach. And so he was like, oh, yeah, my bad. Just whites inspection, summer whites. And so everybody back in the shop were like, Randy, wouldn't it be funny if... And so my wife went out with me, and so we went out looking for everything that I needed to try to become this gopher-looking Navy captain type outfit. And so we went shopping all over, but the white shorts, I couldn't find the white shorts. We finally, at Old Navy, found these short white shorts, but they're female shorts. But they're the short,
Yeah.
So the pockets, you wouldn't know by looking at them. But if you try to put your hand in the pockets, I don't know if anybody knows this, but women's pockets are like 2 inches deep.
Yeah,
you can't even get the second knuckle in them, and it stops. It's like, why the hell even have pockets?
Right.
Just anyway. So I got these shorts. We found the shorts at Old Navy. My shoes I got at Old Navy. They're like little skater shoes, like Vans type, whatever.
Yeah.
But they look, because they're solid white. Socks, I guess OC hooked me up with socks that came up over my knees. I don't know, shirt, maybe JCPenney's, but we couldn't find a belt. I wanted a belt.
Oh, yeah.
And we went into a secondhand store, like a Goodwill type place, and there was a VFW belt, like a ceremonial VFW type whites type, We found that, and I was like, that's perfect. So we put all this together. And then I also bought the hat. I went to Spencer's and found the hat and put the uniform on. And
you see the picture?
Oh, wow. No, I didn't even know.
So I'm not going to show everybody this, but one of my contacts is Randy in that uniform.
At any rate, I think it's on my Facebook too.
Is it?
If you're somebody who has access to my Facebook, you can probably see it. But and for a long time, I vacated Facebook. There's many, I think there's 50, 60, 70 people out there since I walked away from Facebook.
Yeah.
That have requested, and there's from months to even a year, maybe 2 years ago. And I've thought about saying, I'll hit accept this guy as a friend, but I'm like, man, that's kind of rude after a couple of years maybe doing that. Maybe I will. So if any of those people that might be listening ever see me accept you as a friend, it's because I boycotted it because I'm not a Mark Zuckerberg fan. I don't appreciate politics the way that they do it, so I kind of backed away.
Yeah.
But I think I'm only hurting myself, It's not hurting Mark any.
Yeah.
So, and everybody else in America is short-memoried and
right.
Yeah, they're all watching NFL again anyway, bastards. At any rate, I put that uniform on, and I walked out in the hall, and I think Dave Hall seen me, and he was like, holy shit. He was like, you're not wearing that to the photo, are you? And I was like, no, Dave, I'm going to be in class. You're good. That's all he was worried about. Yeah. And I think I bumped into, I bumped into all kinds of people. But Rick, and I talked to Rick earlier today, and Rick was kind of hoping that this would come up.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I was talking with Rick, and one of the funny things is Rick was the LCPO of the Air Ops division at the time.
Right.
And so he went back and said, all right, everybody, Commander has something he wants to say. Everybody line up. He's going to come back and inspect uniforms or whatever the hell he was going to do a pre-inspection or something. But Skipper's coming back. Get everybody line up, get in formation. And so he had everybody lined up in formation, and I walked in. But, you know, it's those kind of things, because if you've seen it, you'd be like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
You know. But in our context, it was funny as hell. We all had a really good time with it.
Absolutely.
And I've put it on a couple times since.
Yeah.
So Griff recently got promoted to senior.
You put it on for that?
He asked me to.
That is awesome.
I did. So I went back to his ceremony. He said, yes, I want you. Can you come back and wear that uniform? And I was like, okay, Griff, I'll do it for you.
That's awesome. Yeah. Gee, I love it. I love it. That...
The XO, when the XO came back there, our new XO,
yeah,
he walked in and he was like, you know.
You freak out?
I think he doesn't appreciate things that the rest of us do.
Yeah.
And I think it's the first time our skipper's seen it.
Yeah.
And I think he even kind of was like, what the hell are you wearing?
There's history here.
Oh, shit.
It is one of those things, though, like when you, and I think that's something that people that don't work in small units like this, you know, don't understand, is like when you do work in small units, you get close, and the things that are arguably or not unacceptable in large units are the things that you remember. Like literally that was, oh man, that had to be what, 2015, 2016, something like that. Probably maybe 2014 even.
Maybe, earlier, probably.
Yeah, because I got there in 2014, and I remember it happened. I remember you walking out and me being in line with everybody outside and just being like, oh yeah, today's going to be a good day. But it's those kind of things, you know, like I said, I have it as a picture on my phone for a contact. Like it's.
But you have to be able to have fun with a group of men that can look at that as there's some kind of humor in it. And you have to be able to laugh at yourself a little bit too, because
absolutely,
it is a ridiculous outfit.
Absolutely.
But it's so much fun when it, you know, when, I mean, I wouldn't go to the park in it.
Right. Right. I think it's kind of like the teeth thing that I had, right? Like, I remember before any class that I taught in nukes, because when I put that retainer in where I had all the teeth, I don't remember what the thing is, but it's like millimeters of change in your teeth is noticeable to you.
Oh, yeah.
And it would make me salivate just like ridiculous, and I would lisp, and it was terrible. I could not instruct like that. And so I just, you know, made fun of myself. What I would do is I would start the class and I'd be like, EOD1 Clark, you know, I did this, I did that. And I'd give my little introduction, and then I'd be like, I can't do this. And everybody would be like, what is going on? I'd turn around and I'd pop them out and I'd be like, oh, that's so much better. And everybody would be like, whoa, what is going on? He's missing his two front teeth. Like, this is in West Virginia.
Like, two front teeth.
Exactly. But yeah, like you just have to, you find those things that are enjoyable, maybe make people laugh at you a little bit, but you're doing it on purpose, you know, and they're not laughing at you. They're literally laughing with you. There's a difference. It's enjoyable.
I've been super fortunate to have, I guess, been welcomed, because when I first came down and you know, interviewed for the position, I was initially hired as a contractor, and it took a couple of years before I, you know, made the step into the job that I do now. I mean, I was still there. And maybe to some extent, I kind of almost wonder if I should regret that a little bit. I think what we've done is amazing, and I think it's kind of cool because I think everybody in our community, if they don't know me, they've heard of me.
Right.
So I'm not boasting or
no, it's
but
the fact. Yeah.
But I do, and I get a lot of calls from a lot of people on various different questions on this and that. And so I feel like I've made a good mark for what we've done, but I've been very fortunate in that I was kind of welcomed in, I mean, I think you guys are you look pretty hard at people. I think everybody is I don't want to use the word judged, but you have to you carry your own weight, and if you can't, then you're really not useful.
Yeah.
Why would we keep you if you can't?
Yeah.
So you contribute or you move on.
There is an assimilation that has to go on, right? Like in general, we don't modify for the one person. Either the one person modifies for us, or they realize it's not for them, and it's not a bad thing. It's not like we're, harassing somebody and whatever. You just like, okay, if they're not going to be that way, then we will just work with them. And that's it. And and there's people like that. And usually they don't last that long because they're like, oh, why are they having so much fun with everybody else and not me? Like, oh, because you don't want to have fun.
Yeah.
Randy wanted to have fun.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I mean, willing to have fun.
Right.
Because sometimes there was a lot of fun happening and I'm like pulling my hair out like, take the fun somewhere else.
Yeah.
Damn it, I'm busy.
Yeah, that is true. And I've seen that. I've seen that where, especially if you're in your shack doing your thing, trying to get something done, and we're just goofing around in the room, and you're like, can you guys please just leave? Get out of the classroom. I can't handle it.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, Randy.
So were you there when Lieutenant Dan came in a couple days ago? And he literally is Lieutenant Dan now.
Yeah.
I used to joke about it and be like, I'm going to call you Lieutenant Dan. And so he's here. He's at Tutu.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and he showed up the other day. Anyway, cool dude. But during that time frame, they would, were you there for the yoga?
Yep.
So, again, I mean, we've probably got 1 million photographs on everybody's phones that I know with all the yoga stuff. But yeah, they would do all those stupid ass. Somebody would see something on some social media website and be like, "Hey, let's try to do this." So you'd have guys trying to do these gay ass yoga poses, and Lieutenant Dan and Maddie.
Yeah.
I mean, but Maddie was, strong as an ox. And, so Lieutenant Dan would be not a Lieutenant Dan at the time. He was just a Dan. But yeah, so Maddie would hold Dan in these crazy, and, everybody would try to do it. Hell, I would break myself. I've always been,
determined.
Fragile. I think that's why I was picked on so much by Tommy, because I was always fragile.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, easy prey.
Indeed.
Yeah, some of the dumb shits happened back in the office. From hyphae mud to... I don't know if you were there for any of that.
I wasn't for that. No.
Yeah, that's just...
I can only imagine.
Yeah, that was a Trevarius thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you ever put Trevor and OC together in a room...
Oh, yeah.
It's... Yeah, gay. In appearance.
Yeah.
I mean, two of the most solid warfighter, heterosexual men you've ever seen in your life, but gay together. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But fun to be around.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's because it's like, there's not a need. There's people that have to prove that they're alpha, and then there's people that are and don't care about what's associated with that.
Right.
Like, they are comfortable And that's
Right.
those two.
Yeah.
When they get together, you know that at any point you could die.
Yeah.
But
It wasn't it at one point, was it Travarius that was going to throw up that one time because two other people, it got so close to that truly gay exchange that I think it was Trevor that was like gagging, like, you know, like he was going to go throw up or something because he was like, oh, man, that's too far. Yeah. We crossed the line.
oh,
yeah, I know.
Indeed.
But we've had fun. I've had years of fun and so fortunate to have worked with. I mean, it started with Sean Cabo and Chad Harris, Royal Fish as a UD1.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. I mean, I've worked with many different personalities and people back there. Boz. I don't want to start naming names because I don't, but you know, like all the LCPOs, like Mike, Adam Schenkel was after Chad Harris, you know, Mike, I guess after him, then some point Tommy, and you know,
just a lot of good dudes. A
Cooler,
lot of good figure. A lot of good figureheads in Navy EOD.
Yeah.
That a lot of people respect, and it's yeah. There's been a lot of good people that have been in and or around the nukes division and whatnot, and like, yeah, I look at you as one of those people, you know, like the fact that, you know, I don't know, when I was in there, and I was in there for about a year and a half officially, and then moved on to FTX because you guys didn't like me. But even in FTX, like my main job was the nukes portion of it, and you know, so I'd come and harass you all the time about I need a source for this, and you know, whatever.
But you actually over there, you picked up a lot of good training aids.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, good things come from everybody that have been exposed to things, because when you went over there, I guess you dreamt up that, hey, this would be a good thing, and for whatever reason we hadn't already done it. You know, it kind of blows my mind some of the good ideas that people come up with, and you're like, why the hell didn't I do that? You know? But yeah, you came up with some great training aids while you were over there. So yeah, it was a good move for Tutu.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed being over there. And it actually freed me up to be able to come up with some of those things. Whereas if I just stayed in nukes, I would have had to keep doing the nukes thing, where being an FTX, it was a little bit more. Nukes was awesome because it was a pretty standard schedule, but it was pretty much always there was some downtime, but it was pretty standard for the schedule. FTX was, when it was going, it was exhausting, but then there might be a couple weeks of pretty much nothing, and that's when I could just like sit there and dream.
Right.
And because of being in FTX and the contracts that were associated with that for training aids, I was able to kind of work things through to get things that I probably wouldn't have been able to get if I was just still in nukes. So it was,
yeah, I'm. There are things that I should pursue, and I to an extent have kind of given up on the supply system because they're just.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, and I get that there are rules in place and there are things, but I'll tell you what, some of these people, they just say no because it's just easy for them to say no. They don't even, like, when you truly have a need, and we have a need.
Yeah.
Like, I have a legal, lawful requirement need, and I still have a hard time getting things. And I'm just so sick of it, I'm not even trying.
Yeah.
And I honestly probably should, because I'm leaving soon. And so I probably should take one last ditch effort and say, we've got to get this.
Yeah.
Because I tried it once before, and they found cheaper. And they were like, we found this other stuff cheaper. I'm like, oh, well, good for you, dumbass. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
Now you just wasted a bunch of money. What are we going to do with those? We'll just fill them with water.
Yeah.
Watch them rust out in the backyard. Yeah.
Speaking of moving on soon, are you going to actually just retire and enjoy your life now?
So, well, no. I'll probably find something to occupy my time.
Yeah.
What I don't want is a structured. I don't want to be on somebody else's clock. I don't want somebody to be able to look at their watch and kind of tap at it and be like, "Hey, you were supposed to be here 5 minutes ago," you know?
Yeah.
Or, yeah, I don't want to punch a clock. I don't want any of that stuff. So, I've considered there's some things around the area that I'm moving into that are right up this alley.
Yeah.
But I'd be punching a clock.
Yeah.
And so if I have to apply for something like that, I might. I think what I'd rather do is hobby type stuff and maybe nickel and dime make some money here and there.
Yeah.
I've got a neighbor he and his brother are into everything. And so it will be no problem. And I'll tell you what, where I live, the home that I have up there, I've got the best neighbors.
Really?
Some of the best Tennessee moonshine,
Yeah.
at whenever I want it at my fingertips.
That's awesome.
Not even a 5-minute drive from my house, and
Nice.
we're there. Yeah, I don't know. I probably shouldn't just talk much about that because I don't know that that's super legal.
Yeah. It's always coming down to the questionable legalities with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's good. That's it's kind of funny because I think, let's see, I've been gone for 6 years now, and 7 years ago, because a year before I left, we were looking at me trying to be your second to, within a year or two, take over. And then it's 6 years later.
Yeah.
It just kept going strong
Yeah.
until you couldn't anymore.
Yeah. There's people that I wish that would take the position.
Yeah.
I've always been super concerned about what's going to happen when I leave.
Yeah.
Because I think I did put a lot of work into it to make sure that and now it's kind of a skate for me now. I don't like to make it seem like it was too hard, but it was a steep learning curve. There's a lot of administrative and a lot of you've got to be on the right time.
Yeah.
Like there are monthly and quarterly and semi-annual and annual requirements, and they all are on differing schedules.
Yeah.
And I've got multiple different inspections that I go through, and so it'd be very easy to drop the ball.
Right.
And I've always told the command, hey, I'm like a single point failure. If something were to happen to me, I get in a car accident or something, what are you going to do?
Right.
We need to get that second person in here. And, what do you call them, 1140s?
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that. Anyway, so we are where we are. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that it continues to thrive and do well. If I were to say there's a lot of things that we should make changes on, I think we've got some things that are aging enough. They're going to have to be, redone again. So I'll probably help. Jake is going to be, he's going to be lettered for my position when I go.
Okay.
And then they're going to try to hire somebody for my position while I'm still here.
Gotcha. It's got to be pretty quick though, right? You're leaving pretty soon.
Yeah, 5 months.
Okay.
So, there's time, but they're not going to be able to. I think they'd be better off to leave Jake in that position until such time that the other individual.
The right individual.
And it's got to be the right individual because that's true. Everything that we talked about, it's a small teams thing. You can't bring somebody in that's of the wrong mindset, and they
Right.
have to have some understanding as to why we do things the way we do it. And
Right.
to be of that understanding, you have to be, to an extent, part of a program that would allow you to have understanding of that. Because if you interview the wrong person and you bring them in, and they're I don't want to say anything bad about our inspectors when they come in and inspect.
Right.
But sometimes they view things differently than we do.
Correct. Yep.
Because they're of the mindset, because they've been school taught their entire life, and they are knowledgeable in CFRs, in all the combined federal regulations. They understand that stuff very well. They understand exposure and how bad radiation can be. But they've got no practical application anywhere in their career. They've
Right.
been issued a TLD their entire military career, and they might have got a couple millirem here or a couple millirem there of dose. But they have absolutely, like, if they went out and did what some of our teams do when they travel on the road show, they would fall over. They'd be like, oh my God,
Yeah.
how would you let somebody do that?
And
That's a different mentality, and we know that it's safe.
Yep.
We have empirical data that shows that, you know, we can safely perform some of the things that we do.
Yeah. And you look at, you have to understand what the mission is and why the mission's there. Have at least been exposed to that mission, if not done that type of mission, to understand why we do take some I don't even want to call them extra risks, but we do take some leeway and don't restrict ourselves as much as we could, because the thing that some inspectors that, like you're saying, don't understand is if we put those limitations so far to the left, we wouldn't be able to realistically train in our job, which once you go down range, if you're tasked with that realistically, you're going to be pretty far to the right. Even with what we do, the way we do it right now, you may end up in a much higher field, radiation field. And if you're hamstringing yourself during training, you're going to end up with all those scars that we didn't want, you know?
Right. We have, and maybe this is the wrong way to throw it out there, but if we had a Chernobyl style event that occurred that any of our guys would have to respond to, they could manage that
Right.
safely.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And those guys, if anybody's ever watched that, that's a relatively realistic HBO version of but it is relatively realistic of events that did occur.
Yeah.
And so to know that the difference between not understanding and knowing what the hell's going on, to having a group of people that absolutely know, oh, it's this bad, and so we can employ these methods. Mm-hmm. And so we can safely, maybe not come to the conclusion that leaders might want, but they
Right.
can safely come to a, you know, they can manage it. Well, they would be able to manage it to a level that would be much safer than what, you know,
Yeah.
what Chernobyl actually was.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
It does. Yeah.
And it's because they have the tools and they understand this is what this tool does, this is how it works, and this is, you know,
Yep.
this is what I'm expecting. And if it's more than that, then I know that I can do this and we can change this up, and and then we also talk about people you can call.
Right.
know?
Exactly.
There's a, you can always, reach out and touch somebody that maybe has a little level of understanding beyond yours. And so
Yeah.
that's key to training too.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but I don't want to talk about training. That sucks.
I know, right? Ugh.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate you coming and sitting down with me. Appreciate you talking a little bit about yourself. I know it can be a little weird.
Yeah.
I think you did it well.
Yeah. And there's so much we probably didn't touch on at all. You know what I think would be fun? Honestly, if you could get like a group of people together that we, like
Yeah.
Dylan, OC, Travarius, Tommy. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. So
Scotty.
I will work on that for nukes. So I'm actually going to do one with FTX here soon, and we're going to call it. So right now, everything up to this point, right, has been just like this. One other person talking about, what they did, having them share whatever they want to share.
Right.
But I think that would be awesome. And it's going to start with FTX. A few of us started talking about that, and we're going to do that here in about a month. And then we're going to call it Bombs and Bourbon. And so it'll be anytime the goal is that anytime in the podcast series that you see Bombs and Bourbon, it'll be a team that was, whether it's, in a mobile unit, platoon, or a shortette, guys that were all there at the same time, or divisions. That's the goal, is to get,
Right.
3 or 4 guys together to all talk about their time and just kind of feed off each other. 'Cause it would be fun.
Yeah.
I'd have to really work at that bleep button, I think, but we'll make things work.
Because there were a lot of time. Yeah, shit. Almost 16 years.
Yeah.
15. I don't know. I'm bad with math. Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's true. Yeah, because you said 2008. Yeah.
More time in Navy EOD than I was in Army EOD.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We got you.
And so, yeah, and I think it's a good niche for me because I don't know that I was ever like leadership style,
Yeah.
And so my niche here was good because it's about the physics. And, God hasn't changed any physics, so I don't have to be current I have to be current in the physics.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I need to know that aspect of this job.
Yep.
And the things that I teach within this job. And I think that doesn't change really.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's why I think I've been able to, grow and build and because I think if I was in any other division, they'd be like, yeah, we're done listening to you, old man.
I wouldn't. I would always listen to you, Randy.
Yeah. Well,
Nah. Yeah, it makes sense. And it is like, that's the thing that, in the classes that you always taught, and your the classes that you hold near and dear.
Yeah.
And some of the analogies I definitely will not say on here.
Don't get yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
It's cool because whatever we say is always like can't be recorded.
Right.
You can't bring that. Yeah. Prove it.
Yeah.
Prove I said it.
Exactly.
Oh yeah. No, I would never do that though. I mean, I suppose there's some analogies that I've used and Jacqueline Blackburn,
Yep.
one of the most amazing people because I blundered once there and, she was just an amazing person.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I and only people that have ever sat through the class would understand it.
Right.
And people are probably looking, if this becomes part of it, are probably like, oh my God, yeah, I know exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's things that you just become that are so normal for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, you don't in any way intend to ever offend or bother anybody, but
Right.
you just throw it out there. And then it's like, shit, I just threw that out there.
Yeah. Bring it back.
Yeah, bring it back. No, because I did. I'm standing there and I'm pointing and I'm discussing and I'm talking about and I say it. And behind me, the class erupts in laughter. And I'm like, what the hell are they laughing about? And then I kind of just turn to the side and I see Jackie and I'm like, oh God, Randy, you just lost your job. But Which, but yeah, I mean, but, when you learn affectionate terms, and that's no shit the way that I learned it.
Yeah.
People,
Yeah.
and anybody that's been through the class knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Yeah. It's interesting.
And that's the only people that will know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah. No, yeah, we'll have to, I'll have to reach out and we'll get some people together and, maybe we'll have to make a road trip and come visit you.
Bombs and bourbon. Oh, shit.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah. That would be fun.
We'll work that. Maybe when I get back from this next deployment.
Yeah, but I can travel too.
That's true. But
so this place that we're in. So when I walked in, I mean, is this their place?
yeah, so this is the Navy Special Operations Foundation office. They have generously let me use this portion for when I do the podcast. And yeah, so it's been awesome. They've really hooked it up. They are officially my only sponsor. Yeah. But no, they've hooked it up a lot. I reached out when I was doing the podcast out of my travel trailer on the side of my house, which my house is on Princess Anne. And so I hear every fire truck, every loud motorcycle, every anything that drives by.
Yeah.
And so it was always fun. It took a lot of extra work when it came to cleaning up the audio. So I'd have to try and remember where the fire truck went by and try to bring that sound down.
Were you writing times down? Fire truck 10:30.
I literally would. Yeah, I would. You'd see me. I'd be doing it, and I'd look over, be like, okay, 2:24. All right. 2:48. Yeah. So yeah, they allowed me to use this space and set up my stuff, and yeah, it's been awesome. So yeah, shout out to Navy Special Operations Foundation for hooking it up with allowing me to use the space, have a consistent place to bring people to, and
yeah, it's nice setup.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty badass. But travel trailers aren't so bad though either. I live in one. I'm trailer trash now. Yeah.
No, I actually really enjoyed doing it out of the travel trailer. It was pretty comfortable. The negatives on that were where I was, and then in the summer when I had to run the AC in a travel trailer is not very quiet.
No, not at all.
And so it would either get really hot, or I would have to adjust the sound so much to try and cancel out the AC that it was a little difficult. So
yeah, even in my trailer, I run the AC up in the bedroom and have a fan set up that runs the air back so I can watch TV, so that the one above me doesn't, because it gets hot here. You know?
Yeah.
And then it just wants to turn on and off and on and off. But the one up front in my trailer, it works great.
Nice.
So I just put the fan on and it runs, and it keeps the rest of the trailer.
That's
nice
perfect.
And cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got in mine. It's only one AC, and it's in the living room. So I have to do the opposite. I have to actually like blow the air into the bedroom, because the like two vents that are in the bedroom, they
don't work well.
Yeah, it's mediocre at best, especially when it gets really hot. If I can cool it off, then at night I can shut the doors so that the kids can be in the pull-out bed, and then it'll like have enough to keep it cool. But if it's not cooled off, it's going to get to a warm, not hot, but never to a cool.
Yeah. I probably jumped the gun way, I got ahead of myself when I sold my house, because I knew that I was going to be leaving.
Yeah.
And I seen the market just going to shit and the interest rates just going sky high. Now I'm glad I'm out of it.
Yeah.
But I'm about 2 years almost. I sold my house, August?
Yeah.
Late August of 21. So I've been living in that camper now for 2 years.
Wow.
And I'm always like, hey, I'm retiring. Got to get somebody hired. Hey, I'm retiring. Hey, I'm serious. And they're like, yeah, whatever. And then when I finally said I'm leaving, then they were like, oh shit, we need to get you to do this SF52. We're going to have to try to do this overhire. Hey, we need you to hurry. Well, they didn't. They told me I didn't have to, but it would be very helpful if I would. And I was like, why didn't we do this long? Why didn't somebody, a long time ago? Yeah.
They didn't believe you. They thought you'd stay forever.
Well, yeah, if they would have hired the number 2, I'd probably still stay.
Yeah.
It just stems from, it's just
too much.
It's not too much. It's just not my niche. I'm just so sick of the admin stuff. I would have loved to have had somebody to help take some of that burden away from me. And if somebody would have just helped taking a little bit of it, then it would allow me to, keep up with radiography, because I got to be honest with you, like Dylan and Mike, to have both gone, and continued where, because it's amazing where we're at today.
It is, yeah.
And on, I'll just leave it at first name, but Mike has done amazing things on his end as far as like research and, and coming up with, and crazy. He was in Bosnia, same time I was.
Yeah.
Also. Yeah.
That is crazy.
At the time we called him Mikey Ryback.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Because there was nothing he hadn't done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
But yeah, good times.
Yeah. All right. Well, to close it out, do you have anything that you would like to leave with anybody listening? I know I should prep people with this, huh? Put people on the spot.
Yeah. I guess I don't know what I would say, to be totally honest. I am thankful. I would like to say, number one, thank you from bottom of my heart for all the people that have been involved with any part of what I do at 22. I've gotten nothing but support from every commander, and there's been a bunch of them that we've gone through. Every CMC, every XO, every LCPO, everybody has been super helpful. And, all the different divisions when we interact with each other. So I would say I would want to leave with thank you to everybody for everything that they have done to support, because none of anything that we've accomplished in our division, that didn't happen without everybody's support.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody's gotten, in as much as, we bash supply and stuff like that, because we have all worked very hard at achieving this. It wasn't me. I'm just fortunate to have been surrounded by true professionals,
Yeah.
at every level. And so I'm just super happy for that. And so I'm glad that I get to leave and know that when I left, it was super successful.
Yeah.
The very first time in my whole career here, my last inspection was my radiation health inspection. It was like in March or something. And it was the very first one. Granted, now we go through all of our inspections and I do very well. Very, very, because like they find these findings or shortcomings and it's but it's mostly just small administrative. You didn't put a T here. Somebody didn't stamp their signature on a physical, which I'm not a medical guy anyway or something, but, or it's simple, usually administrative something or other. But this last inspection, nothing. I got
That's awesome.
absolutely not one single finding. And I was like, yes, the last one, finally.
Yeah.
And now I'm leaving, whatever. I'm going to leave before, so you always want to leave at your
exactly.
high point. And that's my high point. So,
yeah. I'll say today at our quarters at the mobile unit,
I just read that.
Yeah.
What a dumbass. I can't believe I've been drinking out of it. And I've been bummed because it's empty. It's been empty for a while.
I'm sorry.
But, I just read it. That's badass.
Yeah, I got that on one of the trips where actually we were both there at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, at quarters a day, XO and CO said, because they just took over command, right? And our whole triad just changed over, but said, you always want to leave something better than you got it. And obviously, like, it went from pretty much nothing, the idea and the start, but to now with you leaving, it is an amazing program that you've, inherited at an infant phase and turned into something that's awesome, that's amazing for the force, that will stick around and has, and won't go into it, but literally the program has actually proven itself overseas with some of the things that people have been able to do. And so, from my side, one, I thank you for putting that together and taking those bullets on admin that none of us wanted to take. But without, we wouldn't have the program because,
Right.
It literally could not happen without that side. So I appreciate all the effort that you put into it. And,
Well, thank you.
I thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a good run, and I'm super fortunate and super happy. Everything's been great. Yeah. A lot of friends, a lot of good friends, close relationships for the rest of my life. I'll be able to, reach out. I'm not a good networker, but I know that they're out there, like I'll walk through places. I walk through airports sometimes and people are, Randy. And I'm like, oh, hey. And and people that are with me are like, the hell? But I see people all the time and it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
That'll happen for the rest of my life, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe it's to a small degree, but badass if it ever happened in Jamaica or something.
Right.
Oh, hell, that'd be fun. Yeah. Ooh, that's when we should do this podcast.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, we should find like
hey, if there are any businesses out there that want to sponsor 4 or 5 guys to go to Jamaica to do a podcast on location, we will accept your money.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. That'd be so much, because if you sat around and you had a couple bottles of rum or, bourbon or whatever, if you're in the country, you got to, you go with what, when in Rome, right? But you put that out there on the table and everybody, it would be a fun.
And we could all get our hair done like you do every time you go.
Oh my God. That's a story we didn't even talk about.
I know.
Oh man, that was so much fun. Do you know, that was a dare from Travarius.
Really?
Yeah. So Trevor was like, I'll bet you won't do this or what. I don't remember. I think they were trying to get me to, but it was more or less a dare thing. And I was like, oh hell, I'm going to do it.
That's awesome.
And remember I struggled with growing my hair?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't stand it. It was so long. And I'm like, God, this hair is like so obnoxious, but damn it, I'm doing this. Trevor's going to eat his words,
That's so amazing.
Dare me to do that. And then I did it. And my mom, she's seen those pictures and she told my wife, she's like, oh, Carol, oh my God. Those are your anniversary pictures. Those will be those pictures for the rest of your life. She's like, oh, dear Carol. She felt bad for my wife.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. And so Royal and his wife were over there. So Royal and Julie were relatively newlyweds at the time.
Yeah.
And they went with us on that trip, and that was fun. We had a great time. God damn, we had a good time. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Stupid. And then I went diving with Royal and right off the boat, my mask.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm like, how the fuck did that happen to me? So.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, yeah. So I'm like, God damn, Jesus, stupid.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, only when you're around other experienced people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's when that shit happens.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we didn't touch base on. Yeah. Interesting.
And what's crazy is, so we didn't touch base on that, but we've had it recording for, guess how long?
Hour and 15 minutes.
2 hours and 37 minutes.
No, we haven't.
Yeah. There.
Really?
Yeah. We'll have to do a part 2.
I guess it wasn't that bad. There's some things I would probably, if I ever did it again, I'd try to take some notes, try to cue myself into talking about some things.
Yeah.
But there are some things that were inspired at the division, like the whole Jamaica thing we just talked about. I didn't even think to talk about, because everybody's been telling me, Randy, you got all kinds of stories. And I'm like, I got nothing to talk about. I'm so intimidated because you have the heroes in my mind, some of the people that I've seen on this podcast. And I'm like, wow, Scott Weaver, and many others.
Yeah.
You've had people on of people that work in different locations and have different. Anyway,
mm-hmm.
You've had some very impressive people that contribute a lot to the community, and it's not even a community that. I mean, I don't try to disassociate myself from it and say that I'm not part of it, but I really wasn't. Do you know what I'm saying? I was not a Navy EOD tech, but I've been welcomed in because I'm able to contribute at a level that is appreciated in your community. It's not like, that's just an Army guy. It's like, wow, that guy, he was able to provide us with something very useful.
Thank you for listening to the Echo Oscar Delta podcast, where we talk to Navy EOD techs and hear the stories that they want to share.